everyone to this video. Today's debate will be Flo versus Archie. You guys can find us at discord.gg/KG Lounge. The relevant judges will be Cool Guy, Godfly, and Tron doing a post rec. And then I'll let Archie state the proposition for the recording and the judges, and after that, you guys can debate.
Great. So the proposition is just, that an experience is a relevant feature of having either some sort of, set of psychological states or phenomenal states. Flo is going to be taking the negation. I'm going to be taking the affirmative. Flo, do you want to start us off here?
Um, no, I don't want to subordinate relevance or relations in between or a secondary at all. So I'm going to be negating that in that aspect, sure means. But usually it seems that it's not a component in the sense that it's going to be static, but it's going to be dynamically fluid. And in that sense, it's not going to be the representational primacy that he was taking as a component that's going to be fixed. An engineer necessarily is going to be dismantled. But even if he sufficiently tries to take it, it seems to be the fact that that's just not going to be under my vocabulary. I could take like a possibilist sense and just say that we can compute this type of concept. In this concept script can have these components that are going to be organized by a heterogeneous type of novelty that is not going to be, well, I guess, placed on by some necessary feature that's static or selectively assembled. This heterogeneous novelty is going to be this novelty that's going to be new and dissimilar from the factors. Just in case people just trying to say that, like, I'm jargoning. Keep going though.
Great. Okay, so let's just get a bit clear on what we're talking. Okay, so usually all we mean by consciousness, at least has typically defined. I'll be quoting Chalmers and a few other more I guess you can say conventional philosophers of the mind. So generally, we don't understand consciousness to have a very strict definition, which we kind of already gave as caveat beforehand. Obviously, there's many different kinds of accepted terms of usage, right? But what's going to characterize what kind of term or how we're using the word is what kind of phenomenon obviously we're trying to cover. So obviously in the way that we're talking about, there's kind of two senses. So either we could be talking about a kind of internal aspect that's accompanied by the kind of events you're perceiving, thinking, or when you're trying to act, right? Almost sort of like a qualitative experience, what it's like to experience these sort of things, which we might from now on refer to as qualitative feels. And in that sense, right, we can, maybe characterize some sort of conscious mental state as a mental state that has that kind of feel where it feels like something to be, or where, it feels like it feels like something to be someone, in which we can characterize them as being conscious. And then another instance, right, on a more picture of whether you view them in a more psychological sense, we could actually, characterize it by the kind of causal role that it plays in relation to behavior. So, okay, so generally when we're talking about having a conscious experience, right, at least as I understand it, typically to be talked about in philosophy of the mind, that's literally what we're talking about, right? We're talking about whether we have the kinds of mental states that are relevant in that kind of way. And obviously, right, it can't be the case that you have some sort of conscious experience, right? If we understand consciousness to be split between those two sorts of concepts, right? And in an instance in which you just are bereft of the kinds of properties, mental properties, that are needed for you to have the kind of conscious experience, it would just follow that you don't have conscious experiences, right? Chalmers even talks about this in the conscious mind, in which, in the case in which you don't have psychological states or phenomenal states, right? Maybe it could be the case that there's some sort of physical mechanism that you could do as though you act like it, right? In the case that you have pseudo beliefs, right? But obviously, if we're gonna have these kinds of intentional states to where you have beliefs that are about something, right, and that definitely affect those kinds of actions and stuff like that. If your beliefs literally don't play that kind of role, right? If that's not the kind of thing you're talking about, and you're also not talking about what it feels like to experience something in which we typically use the term, it just seems like you're not talking about either, right? So I'm just not sure how you can lift off the ground while saying that experiences are going to be related to these two things, or vice versa, right? That's the point that we're coming off from, right?
Okay, that's nice. I got everything down. Okay, so to speak about it, you're going to be taking those views, but I'm going to be denying that because you're thinking of consciousness in the sense that it's going to have this fundamental substance of the reality or a center of the philosophy. But I'm going to be rejecting the type of ideas that you're using because you're organizing the conscious as a subject representing some type of world in a sense for which you give the subject object distinction, which I'm trying to deny. I think consciousness is going to be secondary. It's going to be the effect produced from the deeper processes of the life and the difference in the affections and the sensations and the forces and the relations, etc. So usually you think that and experiencing the world, but rather you have the impersonal processes, under my view, for which the flows and the intensities and relations, which I was talking about, then give rise towards the consciousness that you're speaking about. Um, Spinoza actually speaks about this, and Nietzsche does too. They have this surface effect or this registration of this type of deeper unconscious process. So you might just say, like the ocean, for example, you have these deep currents of the underneath for which the unconscious productive processes of the waves on the surface gives this conscious awareness, in which the waves, in this sense, would be real, but they're not generating the ocean. The unconscious, which is going against the fruit of Sigmund, Deleuze is not thinking in most of his sense that the unconscious is going to be these hidden representations that we usually presume are these repressed images. He thinks that the unconscious is going to be productive. In Anti-Oedipus, when he was speaking about the unconscious, it's going to be described as a machine of the production, which is producing the desires and the connections and the assemblages. Now, getting back to consciousness, and then I'm about to start attacking your point. My view of consciousness is going to be reactive. So we're going to be treating the consciousness as the reactive rather than the primacy, for which is going to have this interruption of the limitation of the obstacle, for which which has a need for the adaptation. So that's why normally you don't consciously think about walking, um, but if you injure a body part like your leg, the consciousness would appear around the walking given the processes. So it seems that the process in the life comes first. And then you have the body before the mind, for which the body is going to be by what it can do in its capacities, its effects, and its relations. And that's by Spinoza. So that's why he speaks about the individuation before the identity, for which the individuation happens through the differential processes, and then the stabilized identities emerge. So the consciousness, under my view, it's not an illusion. It's just not metaphysically primary. And how you're trying to speak about it, because a lot of people like to try to think that when I say it's not representationally primary, they think it's an illusion, but no, it's just secondary. Now, how you spoke about the internal aspect of the perceiving acting, which is going to be the qualitative fields, which you can characterize as the causal role in the reference to the behavior of the mental states that are relevant in a way. You can have the conscious experiments if they're slipped by those two pieces, and if you don't have the psychological or the phenomenal states, maybe you have the pseudo quasi beliefs, like how you act if your beliefs don't play that role. That's just a recapitulation of everything that I've captured from you. It seems to be the fact. Hold on. Give me that. One second.
Cool guy does not.
This is a high tea
Okay.
debates.
My bad. I'm sorry. Um, yeah. So it seems to be the fact that, under your view, you have the internal qualitative feeling, um, which can be tied towards like a causal or functional role. Um, and it sounds a little bit like functionalism, but I wouldn't hold to it. Um, if I were to speak about it, I would probably go against it in this sense. We have the type of isolation problem in which
Uh,
we can have a perfectly isolated type of phenomenal state that could still be experienced internally, but it would be inert in the behavioral sense. So I don't see why I might ask, would it still even be a conscious experience? Um, but in this sense, I would probably just deny it all under my point. So when you're speaking about the pseudo belief, um, you don't need a role for which the mental state is going to arrive at, for which then the functional roles are going to be integrated. I might just type this down for you actually. Nigga said coin flip. Hold on. Well, is not that for which the lack of role for which.
Yo, what's happening, guys?
I'm typing it down.
What's happening,
I'm just
bro?
waiting for him to finish his point. That's all.
Yo, if you talk again, you'll be banned.
Alright, beautiful. Okay, I'm just gonna put that down. No, he didn't in the chat, by the way. Now, understanding this, we'd probably just say we would reject those rules are going to be the explanation of the type of consciousness or define what the experience is. We would probably go against this in the sense that you're kind of presupposing this type of organized psychological subject for which then you ask how this experience is going to have to fit within the type of structure. That's what I would probably ask. Because it doesn't seem like the experience is primarily shaped on the doxastic states or the actions. But in my sense, it would be a pre-personal sensation for which then the constraint is you would probably try to resist it in the sense that you have the affection, what a body can do or undergo. And then the representation, which is the recognition, the belief, the judgment, for which the affection is not a propositional or integrated into some type of cognition type of thing, but rather it seems that the affection for which is going to be doing in this sense is a bodily intensity that is not yet a belief or the perception, for which the consciousness in this sense is not going to be an organizer of some type of mental reality. It's going to be late in some sense or selective. So in this sense, I just think under my view, um, it's just a criterion of recognizable cognition, but it's not going to be the experiences itself, because it not functioning or having this, or it doesn't play or it doesn't participate, how the post-structuralists would say, as a functional role, is not going to deprive it of its real mental state in this apparatus in this sense. Um, that's why I think that the mind is not the container, but just the field of the differential processes in which the states are going to be the secondary stabilizations. He actually speaks about the effects later in his cinema. That's one late stratum in which it's going to be the more basic field of production. I'll let you go. My bad. I kind of went on for a moment, but you had a lot.
Yeah, so like what phenomenon is like being talked about when you refer to consciousness? Yep. What's up?
Wait, is that like one of the questions you're asking?
Yeah, that's the only question I have. Like what phenomenon is being talked about when you
Well, I
refer
don't
to
even know what you mean by
consciousness?
phenomena there, sir.
You don't know what I mean by phenomenon?
No, sir.
So phenomenon. So you know how there was going to be like a content of like explanation. Like we may like observe a certain state of affairs or observe something happening, and we want an explanation for. So that's usually what I mean. So what do you think is like being explained when we talk about consciousness? Like what's the root of it?
So you think what is being explained when talking about consciousness? I'm gonna type that question down. Talking about consciousness, so I can make sure I got that right. Is that the question? Yeah.
Okay,
That's why I think
so
it's kind of
I'll clarify for you.
I can. Oh, I was gonna answer. Okay.
Yeah. So like so you know how like a phenomenon is usually talked about
Yeah.
like within science and other sorts of fields, like we're just talking about a certain observable fact or like an event or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how like usually we want
That's not what I
explanations
take an
of
event to be, by
phenomenon.
the way.
So like that's fine. I didn't define event, but
I
usually
know.
all we
You're
mean when
saying.
we're talking about yeah, so all we usually mean, like when we're talking about like consciousness and stuff like that, like the whole project of consciousness, or like what we're trying to talk about when we're talking about consciousness and stuff like that. Usually, since we don't have any like actually like very very good definitions of consciousness, right? Usually we want to talk about what's being characterized, right, compared to the definitions
Beautiful.
alone, right? There's many different accepted uses of the term, right, that involve like a degree of knowledge of a subject you may have, you know, the state of being awake, you know, many other. Your mic's a little loud, by the way.
Oh, my fault.
Yeah, so like many others may even describe phenomenon, right? That's obviously not being talked about by Chalmers or any other person that speaks in philosophy of the mind, right? I'll just straight up tell you the phenomenon that I'm talking about, right? If that's in confusion, but I'm just not convinced we're talking about the same thing. So I just want to know, what phenomenon do you think is being described when you describe conscious experience?
So that I think that's a confused question, and it's not. And you ask what is being explained when talking about the consciousness. That's what you're asking. You're
No,
in
that's
reference to some type
I'll
of
ask again.
phenomena, huh?
No, that's not what I just asked like
No,
what
no. I typed
phenomenon is
that
being
down
described.
word for word, and then you tried to give another
I'll type it out.
question insofar to the phenomena. No, I already tracked it, but you try to give another one, which is
Phenomenon
insofar to the phenomena.
is
That's fine. I can
talked
go ahead and answer you.
or described.
Okay,
That's not my
I'll let you.
question. I'll type it out.
I'll let you go
Being
ahead. Yeah, I'm getting
described
trolled. I'm getting trolled, Gyro.
by when talking. Could you answer this in the chat?
Let me say. You asked. Okay, Okay, I'm looking in chat now. What phenomena is being talked about or described when talking about consciousness or conscious experience? Okay,
Yeah.
listen. I've kind of already answered this. It's a surface effect of the lived organization of the pre-personal processes.
Wait, you said it's a surface
And this
effect of three personal processes?
of lived organization of pre-personal processes.
Organizations of pre-organized processes. I
Yeah.
see. And
So
does this refer to like an internal aspect being accompanied by like events you perceive or think, or causal
no,
rules?
no, no. You don't perceive the events. The events are incorporeal,
Right.
and let
Okay. That
alone
means we're not
the
talking
event.
about the same thing.
The events are the Yeah, I told you I'm kind of going against your genesis of what you even think about the
So
consciousness
you
as
aren't
well.
responding to
But
me?
no, I am responding to you. I'm showing that your
But we
whole
aren't.
entire philosophy. I'm dismantling.
What do you
Hold
think
on.
my claim is?
I'm dismantling your view because you're presupposing all of these
That's
postulates
not my
and
view.
statements. No.
We
Your
aren't even
view
talking
is
about the same
assuming these
thing.
postulates. Wait, do you believe that your view doesn't presuppose some type of staticness?
I'm just saying what do you think the proposition we're talking about is?
I know what the proposition is because the
Yeah,
proposition
I'm asking you, what do you think
obviously
it
is
is?
in reference to. Okay, hold on. We're talking about my agnosticism on there being this type of
Okay.
phenomenal. Are you okay?
No, good. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. He is presupposing the subject-object split, but we're
I'm
talking
not,
about
by the way.
phenomenal.
Good.
You are talking about
You
the
could hold a view
subject.
where it's compatible, by the way. That's an option, but good.
No, it's
So
not compatible with my view.
no,
But
that's not what I just answered. Right? I was
I
responding
know
to
that
something
you
in the
didn't
chat.
answer that, but it seems to be the fact that what you just said is going to be presupposing that subject-object split.
You can think that. I just want an answer to the question, that's all. Like, what do
I
you
was
think the
trying to give
proposition
you
we're
one, but you
talking
kind of
about
cut me
is?
off a lot of times. Do you know that?
I said I'm sorry, yeah. I just want you to continue.
Beautiful. You can go on mute. So, if you're asking one of the propositions that was emitted, you were talking about if these components, which is going to be the psychological, and I guess in this sense, the are going to be more so this type of necessity. It doesn't even have to be a necessity. You don't even have to say that, but it's going to be constitutive on that of the mental state.
Yeah, that's not the proposition.
Is that no? I said that's one of the propositions submitted. What is the proposition you're asking for?
What was the question?
What was the proposition? Because you was asking me.
Okay,
You just
I'll
go
answer
ahead
my
and
own
restate the
question.
proposition.
The question that I asked you was just what proposition are we debating on, right? And that wasn't the proposition we're debating on. We're debating about
Oh, you said the
whether mental
proposition we're
states being
debating on.
phenomenal or yeah. For clarification, do you want to give it a go again?
I already explained it, but you want to go? I'll let you go.
I'm telling you that wasn't it though. Okay,
No, I
I'll
know
answer my
that
own
wasn't it,
question.
but I was
So,
telling you that.
oh, so you didn't expect? Okay, that's
What
fine.
do you think I said? I was agnostic on.
I just said I'll answer my own question. I
Go
don't know why
ahead.
you're over talking. Yeah.
I'm
So
not
all
over
we're
talking.
talking about is whether, mental states being phenomenal in nature or psychological in nature is going to be relevant to philosophy of mind conventionally, right?
That's
Which
not what I
obviously it
said.
is.
That's not the
I
topic.
know that's not what you said. That's what I said because I'm the one who clarified the topic in the beginning, as upon agreed
Correct
upon with
though.
Kyla.
But
Yeah.
but I'm saying that the relevance relations. What do you think that is? Do you think that's going to be subordinated, secondary, or primary? And I've given that they're going to be primary. You haven't went against them.
Do you understand that all I mean when I say that it's relevant is just that it's talked about consistently in conventional theses or theses or books concerning philosophy of the mind, right?
No. When you're talking
That's
about
yes,
closely
that is what
connected.
I mean. What do you mean now? That's
No.
exactly
I'm
what I
saying
mean.
no. But usually you're putting that
I don't mean what I
subordinated
mean.
in between. Slow down. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying usually
Okay.
when you're talking about that, you're subordinating relevance in between the two identities
Why are you
or the
telling me that?
relations
That's not what I'm
because I'm
saying.
denying that. No, that
Yeah,
is
that's
what
not
you're
what I'm
saying.
saying. No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Wait, so is that so by saying that, is that like some sort of like equivalent sentence to saying that I'm asking the question of whether like it's been consistently talked about by like philosophers of the mind concerning like the past maybe
Yes,
30 to 40 years? Oh, you
identity.
disagree with
You're
that?
assuming. Hold on. You're assuming the yes. Yes because you're putting relevance and relations subordinated to identity. Of course. When I'm
Wait,
saying they come prior.
I'm asking you a question. So you disagree that it's been talked about consistently?
No, I'm
But that's what I'm
disagreeing.
saying.
I'm
That's
disagreeing
what
that
I'm
the
talking about.
relevance.
You just
I'm disagreeing that that's relevance.
wait, but that's not the question.
I never
Okay,
said that
okay.
was the
I'll
question.
ask.
That was
Okay,
the
I'll
assertion of
ask
what I
again.
was
I'll ask
disagreeing with.
again.
What you said.
Okay,
What?
I'll say this again. You understand the topic is just whether. I'll be gentle. All the topic is right. As said in the beginning, per qua we can refer to the recording, is whether mental states being phenomenal in nature or psychological in nature, whether that's going to be something relevant that's been relevant to philosophy conventionally, right? And upon clarification of what I meant by that, which I also gave an additional caveat of that, your mic's a little bit muffled if you forgot already.
Watch this.
Thank you. Right? Which we already clarified, not only gave a caveat of, but even clarified afterwards, right, Flo? That all that means is that it's been talked about consistently by philosophers of the mind, right? Maybe concerning the past 30 to 40 years, however we range conventional, right, and
Let me ask you a
contemporary and stuff.
question.
So maybe after, but yeah. So all that's literally all I mean, right? So when you say that you're attacking my point, your mic again. Okay, cool. So when you say you're attacking my point, wait, when you say you're responding to me, and then you say you're responding to something I'm not saying, has you just agreed that's not what you mean? You're not denying that, right? When that's what I'm affirming. Remember, you're trying to be giving a sentence or giving some sort of revelation that's exclusive to what I'm saying, right? Such that when we consider what you're saying, it actually motivates us to drop my point, right? And go towards yours. But if what you're saying is not exclusive to what I'm saying, right? If what you're saying actually doesn't require us to disagree with the fact that it has been talked about consistently amongst these philosophers, that actually means you're not responding to me, Flo, right? That's actually what that means, right? It means that you're not talking about what I'm talking about. Now, whether you want to say you didn't agree to this topic, or whether you want to say that's just not what we're talking about, maybe that's like a different story. I don't really know what we're going to do because I clarified at the beginning already. But yeah, to be clear, that's all I'm saying, right? That's what I mean, right? So I'm just wondering if you either have a response to that, right? Something that would make us drop that, or whether you just want to clarify that's not what you're going against, right? And then we just want to be debating about that then.
So I'm critiquing you on your leveling of when you're talking about relevance. When you say something relevant, it seems like in that sentence, um, there seems to be the point of view for which someone whom something matters to, or there's a selection between or amongst the people for which is going to be talked and actually disputed upon, probably. But it seems that you have the organized subjectivity that's going to be stratified within a system that's going to be static, such that it has this consistency amongst the people. But I'm telling you that actually relevance, under my sense, is going to have to be this type of relation organized by this pre-differential field. Now, when you're talking about the relevance, again, and I've told you this, it doesn't seem as if the relevance is going to be secondary insofar to some identity, because you usually assume that there is a topic or some type of topical organization for which has the identity, and then you get the relevance amongst or distinct or do the distinction or some type of functionally accurate depiction. But I think it's derived feature of the organized subjectivity that's a fold inward of the outside that emerges from a deeper pre-subjective process of the type of difference in the intensity. So just to be a little bit fucking clear, you are presupposing the postulate of staticness. You are presupposing the postulate of identity being the primacy, which is not going to be actually secondary. Um, Another thing, when you're talking about talks, you're still thinking that those talks probably are even representative. I could just take a
Okay.
post-structuralist view
Right.
on when we're talking about language and just take it to be more participating, not mirroring with this representational primacy or representational view that you may be invoking. It could be like anti-representational in a sense. Um, very, 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 very fucking interesting. I go slow for people
Right.
and they still do great. Keep going.
Oh, we're done. Okay, cool. So, like, I'll clarify this one more time, right?
Go ahead.
I mean, actually, I'll just ask you this. Do you think we mean the same thing by relevant? Like, we're using the same semantics there? We're talking about
No.
the same concepts? Okay, so do you think you're attacking my point?
Yes.
Okay, even though I mean something different by relevant.
Yes. Want me to explain?
So the proposition contains the word relevant. Like it's kind of making up the whole thing. Like the proposition is really whether X is relevant to Y. And when you say X is relevant to Y, you mean something different. So we
What did you
mean two
just?
different things by X is relevant to Y, and you think you're attacking what I'm saying. To be clear,
What did you just
that's a
do?
yes.
When you say X, hold on. I'll answer that question. I just
We
need a
can go to
clarification.
conclusions.
I need a clarification. We can go to conclusions
No, we
after
can go
this.
to we can go to
We can go
conclusions.
to conclusions after this. When you
I'm not
say
gonna answer
X
it. This is
relevant
this,
Y, do you believe that you're starting with an X that had? Do you believe that you're starting with an X
we could go to
that is going to
conclusions.
be
That's fine.
static?
We can go to conclusions. This is just nonsense. It's just nonsense.
Okay, do you
Right.
guys want to do
So
like
just
2 minute
hold on. We're
closings?
gonna go to conclusions after
Yeah,
this
that's
since you
fine.
said
You can go first.
we can go. No, no, no.
I'm
Since you
not
didn't
gonna
answer that
entertain this
question, because
anymore.
I thought he
He's
was gonna
just
answer the
not
question, then
interested in
went to
engaging with me.
conclusions. But
Uh huh.
no, it's not that we start off with the X and then we get the relevant of Y. Because we have to start off with the difference, then you get the X and the relevance of the Y, for which there is no
Can
distinction in
anyone
between,
repeat
but
what he's saying?
distinctions produce. No, actually, there is somebody in the chat that can. Bell.
Vale.
Oh, you seem confused. Yo,
Ooh,
Bell.
a precog.
Do we
Hold
start
on,
off with
chill,
the X or do we
chill,
start off with
because
the
you guys have a
difference?
minute left. Just go to closings. Just somebody give
Bell,
their
do we
Yeah,
start off
closing
with
I,
the
I,
statements.
X
I
or do
said
we
he
start
can
off with the
close
difference?
first. I don't know what he's doing.
Okay.
He said, "Wait, chill." I was talking to Gilbert. It's
I'll
fine.
mute
Wait, it's
Archie.
fine. He could go to. Okay, that.
I know you was. Oh, no, 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 no. I wasn't talking to you. I know. I was just reading what you were saying. I was just
All right,
reading what you
Flo,
were
give
saying.
your closure, boss.
But yeah, I got you. Um, so I said relevance seems to be like a relation, and I take those to be primary. But I didn't say the relevance are going to be primary, by the way. And if I did, that's a huge mistake. But I was trying to say that the relevance was secondary to the differentiation. He thinks that we start off with an X, which is an illusion, and then you get the relevance in between an X and a Y. But that's just not the assignment that I'm placing there. And that's why I told him there is no relevance in between, but rather it's a relevance that's just derived and it's on one leveling of the identity for which is going to be metastable by a prior differentiation that is more productive and powerful. Um, so I don't think he went against that view. He asked a lot of questions on the consciousness point, and the consciousness point that I think I was encapsulating was obviously trying to show that the consciousness is not going to be what you think of. It's not going to be a substance, a mental container, or some type of inner area, or this internal area that he was trying to presuppose. Because that's too much structure. It's actually a production in this sense. So a subject is formed, under my view, from the deeper layer of the pre-conscious processes, for which are the intensities and the differences and degrees and the effects and the flows and the multiplicities and the assemblages. And they are non-subjective processes of reality itself. So I think he was confused when he asked, we are explaining consciousness, because he thinks that, because that's like the wrong place that we're not supposed to even be starting at under my philosophy. That's a wrong question. It's a confused question. We're not treating consciousness as a basic object that needs an explanation in the way we explain digestion, for an example, or vision, etc. I know a lot of people like to think that I'm reading off something. I'm not. I can go and screen share, by the way. But it seems that the synthesized field of the perceptions which are stabilized into an organizational coagulated are from the continuous flows, which the discontinuities and intensity becomes something perceived. Hold on. So my bad. With that being said, I given the preformed subject who then has these experiences, and then therefore, I think my point kind of went uncontended. There you go. You can go ahead, Archie.
Okay,
You
I'm gonna
can
unmute
unmute.
him. All right.
Yeah, so he just like didn't respond to anything. I'm not really sure why he was adamant on not engaging with me in the topic, but like I clarified with him already beforehand, and we already had a conversation beforehand that all we were talking about is whether like mental states being phenomenal or psychological was going to be relevant to philosophy of the mind, contemporarily and conventionally, and and just whether it's like it's commonly associated with talking about experience in philosophy of the mind. Now, like I don't know if he realizes, but as I already told him, as I already explained, we just aren't talking about the same thing. He admitted that he just simply didn't mean what I meant when I said relevant, right? And obviously, if we aren't talking about the same thing, his point could be true. Maybe it's not relevant in the sense that he's talking about, and that still wouldn't be exclusive to whether it's relevant in the sense that I'm talking about. Because as upon clarifying, right, which he didn't realize, I asked him a question about whether he thought it was relevant in the way that I meant relevant, and he said yes, already implicitly conceding, right? Now, to be clear, already, as I already mentioned as well, and I wrote in the chat as well, again, even if it's the case that his point goes through, that it's not even the sort of thing that is an object to be explained, at best, that would just critique the overall area in which this question lies in, right? This isn't critiquing or answering or engaging with the question itself, right? It's just a meta question, right? So again, he's just not engaging with what I'm saying. That's literally all there was to it. I can't even say this was a debate at this point because it just felt like I was speaking to a brick wall the entire time, right? But that's like the only interesting comments on this. Yeah, I guess we can wait for judgment.
Yeah, that was interesting verdict. Interesting as fuck.
That was a verdict. I agree.
All
Wait,
right.
so where's the
Yeah, I
judgment?
agree. I
I'll
just thought
post
it
the
was an
video.
interesting one.